My name is Khalil and I am moving towards being Ithaca's premier artist, African American artist, and I've done a few things art-wise, and I think that's one of the things that makes me important. I love working with kids because I can remember myself as a child in Philadelphia. I grew up in Philadelphia and Baltimore, and what happens is I used to go to the rec center and they used to always have arts and crafts. And I think those were probably the happiest times that I would have when I would go out to play or what have you. And they always taught all kinds of things that I always thought were exciting and interesting, and I thought I was an artist a long time ago, but it didn't get or register until later on in my life when I started being offered money for whatever I did and everything. I was actually born here in Ithaca, and one of the things that I always think about in regards to Ithaca is like my grandmother and my auntie, all those good things that they used to do, the baking of cookies and things of that nature. And I think it was always a creative source in our family because my aunt, she'd sew and make dresses and do needlepoint, and she dabbled in a little watercolor and stuff of that nature. So I think that is something that it's in our DNA, so to speak, art, and I just have a fascination of art. It doesn't matter what kind of art it is, art all the way from the performing arts to the spoken word, the song, the dance, and I think that's one of the things that we need to encourage as far as the kids. And I always like to work with the kids to do that, to get certain things, like I guess would you say marinating within themselves so that they can come up with ideas and stuff. I remember the first idea of Alex Haley in my mind was the autobiography of Malcolm X. Is one of the books that I put up here on the end there, and I knew his name through there, but I had no idea. Having been born in Ithaca myself, I had no idea that he was born in Ithaca until later on in my life. I remember the Roots when the story of Roots came on TV, and they had this miniseries. I think it was a whole week, and it was such a important for African American people. It was such an important story to be told, and I thought it took a lot of courage for him to even tell a story like that in America, knowing what the pros and cons were going to be, especially dealing with that slavery issue and how a lot of people who had been, I would say relatives of former slave owners would not take kindly to the story itself. The first actual design that I put together for this was, I think it depicted the whole story of Kunta Kinte, the story of Roots, and how he came from the village of Drufure by the river Gambia, and how he traveled through the slave trade and eventually had children, and their children had children, and it came all the way up to Alex Haley, who happened to be, actual descendant of Kunta Kinte, one of the Gambian people from the western shores of Africa. But in that depiction, there was a lot of intense. I had slaves being collared and chained and walking in rows and stuff, and some of the struggles that they had to go through, the politics. But then we came up with another idea, and this idea would have been the idea that's being depicted now. And I'd like to be an educational type thing. People have very little knowledge. You'd be surprised when I was making the book down on the end. people say, oh, I didn't know he was born here. There's a lot of people that didn't know Alex Haley, who was a very important historical character, a writer, that he was actually born in this city. And that's Ithaca's claim to fame. And my claim to fame happens to be that I was able to salute him in this artistic tribute. I got a book there. Since he was a writer, I figured that would be a significant piece to put in there. And the book had information about, Alex Haley. When did you know about him? And as you see, did you know he wrote books? And did you know that he was born right here? And his house was right down the street. So I got the children in there kind of like in celebration and, like in a degree of awe for him. And one of his notable books was Roots. Jay Stooks came in and did that for me with the Black liberation colors involved, the red, black, and the green. Because children, young people always frequent this place during the summer, I wanted them to be educated as to Alex Haley, as well as to let them know that he didn't just write one book. A lot of people just think it was an autobiography of Malcolm X. And a lot of people think it was an autobiography of Malcolm X and Roots. However, I came to find out he wrote tons of books. He did tons of interviews. And I wanted to point out when I did my last segment of the painting, his other books, and the idea that they should go to the library for more. I think it turned out pretty good. Okay, that works.